working on optimizing some of the production here. It's fireworks going on here. Hang on, I'm in Tbilisi, Georgia. They do this typically different weeknights. We're in the old city. There you go. We'll have this on video. It's pretty cool. They do this on a regular basis, just year round. 9 p.m. I guess is the normal time on, I don't recall this over the last weeks, but you can see it there. Pretty cool. Let's get a look at this. We'll kind of join in the celebration. This is from my residence here in Tbilisi, the old city. And I know that the 26th of May, coming up here in a few days, is their Liberty Day. And Toledo's kind of running around. This is more than normal on the fireworks. Just kind of started right now in this call. Cool. This will be for memory. There's a lot of neat things here in Tbilisi. It's a fun place. We'll just kind of get this going around. It is Saturday evening our time. There we go. Look at that. A lot of battles have gone on here in Georgia. Wow, here we go. Oh, yeah. The borders are just right down the street from us. Let's just hear kind of a unique show here for us. Here we go. Fireworks in Tbilisi. Straight from downtown. Yeah. Here we go. That might be it. What a deal. 9 o'clock. You hear some cheering. Clapping. Pretty cool. Yeah, Tbilisi, Georgia. Sakartvelo is the name of the country in their own language. That's the name of our company here, Concentric Industries, Sakartvelo. And we're very excited to be here. A lot of great opportunities. And that's pretty much what I'm going to talk about tonight is we've got a real dichotomy. And it's one of these that when you see a mystery, okay, that is, let me confirm. Am I still on? Have I been on? Okay, good. Hi, everybody. Yeah, little fireworks show to open things, so that's cool. We, as Concentric Industries, are a term we coined from the old days of power generation that we updated the term. The old term was boom, which is, no pun intended, but it stood for build, own, operate, maintain. And that was what someone would do in a power plant where you were what became known as an independent power producer. And that's our pedigree. We worked for and supported independent power producers. And if you want some insight on what that really entails, AES, it originally stood for Applied Energy Services, I think, maybe Applied Energy Systems, but pretty quickly in their development back in the 80s, they just switched to AES. So real simple, AES.com is their website. And they've kind of, like a lot of other thermal power companies, they've kind of whittled things down to go wind and solar and that kind of thing. And I think we're all kind of seeing to the detriment of ecology and economy, right? Because you need baseload power generation at scale, and economy at scale is real. And there are costs involved, even ecological ones for wind and solar. And more important is the shaping of that power when it's not being generated. You can't just have errant stuff on the grid. So we're not so sure. Well, I know for a fact the spirit of AES is kind of diminished. I knew the founders, Roger Sant, and more so even Dennis Backey became a mentor of mine. They were a client of ours. And I bring all that up, just a little background, because what I think a lot of individuals, we kind of rack our brain in a minute, and this might seem redundant. And like I said, we're going to get guests and upgrade some videos and stuff, but and that kind of thing. But we're very busy. We've got a full court press in this company right now on capital raising. And that's been a kind of a bone of contention for the whole world, isn't it? For infrastructure. You're reading the headlines how there's water deficiencies or there's power deficiencies and outages and stuff, and everyone just wants to blame. And where's anybody doing anything? Well, in our book, what we ended up calling it now is the DEFCON. And yes, it's kind of a play on words with the military code, but it stands for Develop, Engineer, Finance, Construct, Operate, Maintain. It's the holistic way to do all these projects. And I kind of, I think one mistake I've made over my life is I always took that for granted, that that's what people did. Uh, there, there is a lot. I don't know the exact statistic, but I'm going to say it's probably at least 50% or more of power plants worldwide are not directly owned by a utility, or they might be financed by a utility, but they're built, operated, and maintained by independent power producers, independent companies. And especially in thermal power, coal, oil, and gas, a lot of power plants are completely privately held, and they just sell the electricity into a utility who then distributes it. And you get a lot of efficiencies that way. And that's the background we came from. So I came from a world where individual companies, and I think one of the sad parts about the modern, all the icons and cults of personality, so to speak, you've got a lot of really wealthy people and a lot of them who really haven't really done much, but they just kind of got in the way of, whether like, and I like him in general, but like an Elon Musk made a lot of his money with, wasn't it PayPal? He just kind of got in at the right time or whatever. So, and I know he's doing stuff with Tesla, and I'm not here to even critique any of this or whatever. He's doing stuff, SpaceX, people have a right to go pursue what they want to pursue. But one of the challenges going on in the whole world is that there's needed infrastructure, right? Energy, food, air, and water are vital. And the world has kind of turned away from some of those basic bricks and mortar technologies, and that's been our bailiwick. And a couple things that I got kind of surprised by is that when you talk about having solutions in that space, you're kind of immediately tagged as a rebel, a crazy, a lunatic, or whatever. And it's like, whoa, wait a minute, I'm just trying to meet people's needs, because last I checked, everybody needs energy, food, air, and water. And so if we have a comprehensive business plan to develop the projects, I mean, identify them, look at strategically where they would go, look at site plans, make sure equipment's fit, zoning, all that kind of stuff is pretty straightforward, but you need to know what you're doing. And it's I tell people a lot is we have pollution free systems now, because when we started doing all this, we didn't. We complied with and we got air permits in accordance with the laws, and we realized, what if air and water could be cleaner coming out of power plants, factories, and farms than going in? What if our emission levels were zero in air and water? And to all the people who continue to say that's impossible, you're wrong, because it's not only possible, we've done it and we're doing it. And plants we've built for decades are doing it. And then we came along and had this graphene component, which I thought would make things better. That would draw the VCs out. When you say, hey, we got a whole new material here that's um, cultures, man, wow, interesting. You look like the guy my mom dumped last year. Yeah, not me. Oxycodone or ketamine. I don't know these are ketamine or oxy. I don't know what these comments are. This is weird. Like, I thought we got the gaslighters out in come in and done this, do you think? Or can anybody see any settings anywhere on what I can go do to, let's see, a chat filter, top messages, all messages, none. You can't hear me either. Turn your volume up. What happens? Does it say I'm muted out? Okay. Talita, are you able to hear me? Give me a, can hear it? Okay, good. So try to stay tuned in and let me know if I go back out again. Okay. Um, so yeah, where were we? Um, yeah, it's there's a definition of capitalism or being in business or creating wealth where you just meet people's needs. And as a company, we've built over 100 power plants and water built over 100 power plants and water treatment and agricultural facilities, the wide, basically carbon usage that our patents are based on. And we went through a lot of hardship the last 14 years. And I don't, I'm only saying that because it's part of our story that matters, because we're having to just restart financially. And that's not that strange of a story, but it sure has turned into a lead balloon on us. And we're trying to work through that. But I want to explain that business plan because it's a DEFCON. Develop, which we identify and get licenses and permits and everything. We engineer, we design and build. We're a professional engineering firm. I'm a licensed PE. We know how to do these things. Came up through the folds. You had to get experience in order to be a PE, and then get write-off from other professional engineers to even go take the exam and become one yourself. So it's based on experience and practical evidence and endorsements. And then from there, the financing, and we'll talk about that in a minute. But the idea was, if we're going to be the owner operator, we need to raise the financing. And typically in these industries, it's not one person or one guy. It's not like a cult of personality. It's, you got utilities will make investments and everybody there gets together. And that's kind of how it would work. And that's how our project worked historically. Well, for us to take on that role, to be the lead financier and be the key owner operator, is something we wanted to do. We saw a need for it, and the need is glaringly huge now. And most of the world's just kind of sitting still on plants, and they're looking for companies to take on the full role. And a lot of the finance companies just don't believe it's even possible. And yet, the largest independent power producer in the world, AES, has done just that. And we were part of in the background setting that up, by building plants for them that could be repeatable and duplicatable. And so we are doing that for ourselves now. And then the operate maintain is, again, we design these with control systems. It's the algorithms behind optimizing them. We know all the ins and outs of these power plants, combined cycle gas turbines, coal, oil, gas, garbage, sewage. That's what we've been doing all along. And what we did, every patented process was simply taking the next step to add another feature, change something, or look at a better way to process it. And in general, for anybody who's sophisticated in anything to do with energy, the kind of holy grail of what you ever want to do with any fuel is not have to burn it. Certainly any solid fuel. And if you can find a way to convert it into gas or liquid fuels, it's a lot easier to handle. And not only is it then easier to handle, but you also can use it in engines or turbines whose waste heat can be used to make steam to run through a steam turbine, or that heat used for some other HVAC or combined heat, power, and cooling, all sorts of different uses of the energy. That's our background. Okay. That is our pedigree. That's who we are. We grew up in the field of building power plants to meet combined heat, power, and cooling needs. And it's just an energy and mass balance. And over the years, we said, let's reduce air pollution. Let's eventually convert all the flue gas into something useful, which, lo and behold, carbon dioxide feeds what? Photosynthesis. So the feasibility of converting that into algae or other proteins, we're doing some experiments with moss now, is really a natural biomimicry thing. And you say, wait, what's biomimicry? Just mimicking nature. And so we're combining thermodynamics of power systems with botany. And apparently that just drives the banking world and the power world crazy, because people who've gone down this path, including me, just get kind of saboteured. And it's not a victim story, but the reality is it's foolish, because the human race needs more food as much food in the next 3 decades as the prior 3 millennia, and as much energy, electricity production in the next 15 to 30 years as in the prior 300. So this idea of doing things the same way we've done before and expecting results is idiocy, right? That's actually called insanity. And so it's funny how people doing that call us insane, when all we're doing is advocating, hey, look, population's growing. We should probably find better ways of doing things. Okay, so we went through a deal where everything got stolen from us last decade, and we had to start over financially. And I'm just sharing this from the hip. This was connections with Concentric and kind of almost like fireside chat or something, but you get me here in Tbilisi with the fireworks or whatever. Okay, so it is what it is of what we're reporting on. And I'll tell you, this is a great mystery for me. And I throw out a challenge. I'm going to turn this into a challenge. This will be the night. It's what, May 23rd, right? 2026 on the Gregorian calendar. And I'm going to continue to throw down with this for anybody in this organization. And a lot of you know this going on. We already have an industry leading 2% success fee for anyone who helps us get financing or close on a project. And if you got $1 million project and you help us find a way to close financially, you can get $2 million out of the deal. I mean, you can make a lot of money just by making a phone call to an intelligent person who wants to be engaged in how the human race is going to exist going forward. Here's the deal. We assume an attention span, right? And if you're part of a generation that is like hooked on video games and all these things, that's fantastic. It's agility, it's mental acuity. There's a lot of things needed to get good at that. Get good at a lot of things. Take that insight and get good at this. Where's that electricity come from? Start to ask some questions about what's taking place around you, and get involved in what the future is, instead of just bashing people who talk about doing what they've already done. And if you want to come after Concentric Industries and just keep coming after me and say, hey, this guy, he's this, that, and the other thing, get your facts straight. See, because here's the deal. Everything in the world, everything on earth boils down. Claude Monet said it great. The subject of all work is light. The book I read says the darkness tried to encroach upon the light and it could not overcome it. There's other things like no one lights a candle and puts it under a table. You want to be a light on the hill. And you really can. I believe you can boil things down to light versus darkness. And I'm not talking super metaphysical like frequency modulation, although things do, matter and energy are about frequency, aren't they? The electromagnetic spectrum, right? From ultraviolet all the way down, and gamma rays, X-rays, ultraviolet, visible light, sound, audio, infrared, as you go on down the way. It's all frequency. But what I'm really just talking about is simpler than that even. And it's that anything in the world has one side that's trying to expose light on it, and the other side's trying to stay in the shadows. And that's how you can always find out who's true or not, right? It was King Solomon, right? Where, they said he was a wise ruler. It's a great story. He really said this, where there's two women that were like prostitutes, and they said the one came in and said, oh, she stole my baby. Hers died in the night. She took mine. That's my son. And everybody's like, we don't know. They're just over here. And so they bring him to King Solomon. And he says, here's the deal. Saw the child in half and we'll split it. Well, the real mother said, no, no, no. Let him live. She can have him. Right? Because she was interested in the life of her child. And the other one who wasn't the mom said, yeah, go ahead and cut it. Who cares? And Solomon said, the one who said, let it live is the real mom. Just because it's true. People would do that. Well, the thing is with Concentric Industries is all we're trying to do is expose light on everything we do. We want everyone to know everything we know. And we really do. If you look at even on the websites, we're trying to give information because they want this. They want, how many plants you built, how many, we're trying to get the records again. Everything got wiped. And we can get the lists again, but how many is enough? What if we had the list of 127? What if we had, EW Brown power plant in Kentucky? What if, my CV, my resume used to be like 20 pages long because it would have a couple lines on every single plant I was involved in and that we built. I don't have all that data anymore. Some of them were a long time ago. So we're getting them, and our website has a bunch. But the point is we build these things, and we've done them, and we're doing them again. And all we're doing is just with more efficient equipment that has more products. Because every time you take a waste stream like flue gas from a combustion process, or waste heat from a process, or the residuals from any kind of thermal process that breaks the carbon down, if you find continuing ways to use that, you're going to get additional products. That's all we've ever done. It's actually incredibly simple. And we think, it boils down to stewardship and a responsibility. We had somebody in the company say, about we do it, we get identified with this, that we're waste to energy. And we're not just a waste to energy company. We've done a lot of waste to energy plants. Right now, we're kind of omnivorous, like everything to graphene, E2G. We can take carbon, coal, oil, gas, manures, garbage, sewage, all that stuff, and we process it. But it's not just to energy. We've had plants in the past, that's all they did. You burn and boil, right? You burn the fuel, make steam, run a steam turbine. It's called a Rankine cycle. It's relatively inefficient. Thermally, it's not that good either. And you have air pollution from burning the garbage. And yeah, you can have bag houses, precipitators, uh, sulfur scrubbers, like you have a limestone and put in a fluidized bed, like the designs we ended up going with for our second generation of waste to energy was to pick up some of that efficiency loss with fluidized bed boilers that were more efficient than a traveling grate. It's called moving grate incineration. It's about as rough of a boiler method as you can have. And if you have wet fuel, it doesn't work too well because you got to pre-dry the fuel. Well, again, we get to do that in our processes now because we convert all the waste into gases and oils that can be used for power generation directly with engines or turbines. And then the waste heat can dry incoming fuel, boil water to make it steam for a steam turbine cycle, all kinds of other uses there. And what we've done is we've boiled it down to this holy grail spot of it's a modular system now too. So for $20 million, we can build a system that can process a certain amount of fuel, like around 100 tons a day. Moisture content can vary, but 72 tons a day coming in. Really, we need 60 tons a day because we can make 12 tons of algae from the waste of the prime mover that runs off the gas we create. So it's this circular loop that's really, really simple. I've even got a spreadsheet out there. You can see it on like TikTok, and I've got it here in my phone and send it around to the guys, where we can look at any fuel or waste, anything, coal, oil, gas, garbage, sewage, cement, kiln emissions, livestock manures, the whole deal. And just it follows a metric where we can look at the economic and ecological value and all the gains and outputs and everything else on it and scale it in a matter of seconds now because we have a table for it. And I issued a thing, it was called This Is It. Because after all these years, we have this simple metric. And nobody in the world's doing that. Nobody. And again, why would I develop that? Because we were building these plants all over the world and every time a new one would come along, it's like we're starting over again. And we can't afford to do that. It's why the world's fallen behind. So we've come up with these answers super on purpose. And then we get into places where we just get gaslit. Like, who are you guys? Where's your degree? Where's this? Who are you? Is it a real company? We even get people inside the company saying that. It's like, wake up, everybody. What a strange, I wonder, I look back because, if you go 100 years back in America, right? The Carnegies, the Mellons, the Vanderbilts, who else? The Rockefellers, there were all the families that, you could say Henry Ford was in there on the automobiles, or the Dodge brothers, whatever, basically just companies, Westinghouse and Tesla and, all this stuff going on. You just have people applying technology, right? It was kind of a turning point in the Industrial Revolution. And a lot of it was Rudolf Diesel said it. He goes, because Rudolf Diesel was in an era coming out of James Watt and the steam engine, and there was steam turbine. And basically, when Newcomen made the condensing turbine, it was remarkable. right? Because when you have steam coming through something, and there used to be carnivals that would have this, you can look it up. It's just the properties of steam. There'd be they put two steel balls, big steel spheres, and have horses pulling it. You can look this up. You can find it online. It's cool because it really happened at circuses and fairs where they would take a big steel two hemispheres that would have a seal and they'd lip over each other. And to come over on the inside, like on the lip, like this, all the way around it. And what they do is they fill it with like a gallon of water or whatever, and they boil it so it would turn into steam inside the drum, and it'd be connected by some chains to like some packs of horses there. And at first they'd show it together with nothing on it, and they just pull it apart. The thing would practically fall apart. Maybe it was up in some bearing canister, so it would just be dropping all over, and they just pull it apart and up on like what would they call that, a not a pin, where I'm trying to think of the word on a canyon, a trunnion. It's called a trunnion. Like where a rotating cannon can be in those trunnions. So you'd have the steel spheres up in these trunnions, so it'd kind of stay there, and you could easily pull it apart like a bearing. It was operating like a bearing. Well, what they do is they boil the gallon of water, put a fire under it and make water, and then basically the steam's in there, okay, and then they put it together, do that, boil the water off, and then let it cool down, and then they tell the horses to pull apart, and they're like stuck. People are like, "What the heck? What's going on?" Because see, steam, when you boil water, steam has like upwards of 1,000 times. It depends on its pressure and all the different properties. But as a rule of thumb, just to put in picture here, it can be 1,000 times more volume than the liquid itself. It expands. In fact, did you know ice, when ice forms from water because of the crystalline structure, ice actually expands slightly bigger than water. It's why pipes will freeze and crack. Why it's the only material in the world, water, that gets larger as a solid and larger as a gas. Everything does as a gas or vapor. And you can compress steam, obviously push it down, make under high pressure, and that's how the turbines run. But what's funny, what happened is it draws a vacuum, right? Because when the steam would condense, now you have a vacuum because there's nothing there. And it would draw these two spheres together, and people couldn't pull it apart. They'd have to release a valve and let the water and steam drain out, and then they'd pull it apart easy. But I bring that up because Rudolf Diesel said there's got to be, because it went through steam engines, then steam turbines, direct blade, and then they had condensing turbines, where at the very end of the steam turbine process, you cool that steam down that's coming out the back end, and it cools down and condenses and leaves what? A vacuum. So you're actually you got high pressure steam coming in one end of a steam turbine, and you draw a vacuum on the back end with the cooling water. And so it's like you got this high pressure raging steam trying to get through the turbine, and you put a vacuum on the back end, and that thing can't get through fast enough. I mean, you're just like one after another. That steam just wants to throttle through the high pressure end and get back to the end under a vacuum. But Rudolf Diesel came and said there's got to be something direct transfer, because everything we're doing is just heating water to make steam to run a steam system. And there's limitations there because you got heat transfer. And then even with the condensing turbine, you're still kind of generally in that, brand new, maybe low 30 percentile efficient, and older, World War II vintage plants that are all over the world are like in the low 20s. But if you can extract a fuel directly from some solid fuel through pyrolysis or gasification, you can run it through a reciprocating engine, which diesel engines now push 50% efficient. I saw Mazda did some stuff. They got where gasoline and diesel fuel, they get compression ignition, even with more of a lower chain distillate like gasoline. I'm not sure where all that's going to go, but I'm not sure that was the big need. See, the big complaint is that diesel has more emissions. Well, but if you're capturing the flue gas, you want the emissions. I want CO2. We can make more algae out of a liquid fuel fired system than we can out of a similarly sized gas fired one. There's an energy and mass balance on everything. And that table we put together has all that. And it really wasn't even that hard to put together, but no one's thinking that way. So we don't even have to do a one of type of thing anymore. We just plug it into our model, and that's your basic sizing. And then you just go from there, and it's modular. So we don't have to sit and have heartburn. Was it going to be 800 tons a day or 850? You see projects get canceled all the time on waste plants. Well, how much fuel can the city guarantee? And then they're like, we don't know. And what if it's, 500 tons a day, and then they argue, and it could be 450 or 550, and the deal never gets done because they're going to build a boiler specific to that size. Well, we have a modular plant now where if it goes up or down, we just buy one or more two units. We just keep expanding with it. And the things make so much beyond just electricity that they can pay for themselves quickly. And we get people in the finance world saying, well, that's a different model. We're not really sure about it. And it's like, do you think so? Doing the exact same things the way we've done before when they're not working and expecting better results is called insanity. So here we are as a company who says, hey, let's do it different. Let's do it better. Let's capture the waste heat. Let's capture the flue gas. Let's do things like make biomass out of it and make extra fuel out of the flue gas. That's not insane. It's smart. It's wise. And that's what we've got a lot of going on. And it's an amazing experience because during this like 14 years now of hostility and kind of animosity, especially in the US against this company to the point of criminal sabotage of what we were doing. And you can read about the story again. We're trying to shed light on it because, oh, this, that, and the other thing. I saw this and other deal. Hey, go ahead. We want light. We're still trying to get a hearing. Isn't that funny? If you really look into our case, our whole company got stolen, completely gutted out. I personally did time in prison, never had a jury or a trial, nothing. The indictment, just nothing, just fake judges faking to sign papers, fake evidence, no evidence hearings, nothing, no jury, the whole deal, and just lock a guy up. And people say, well, how'd you have that happen? I lived it. I know how it happened. It's a disgrace. And anybody concerned with justice ought to care about that. Because you know what? Here's the deal. They're coming for you next. And it's not just a they, it's people that don't know the difference between really making money. It's takers versus producers. Look at what goes on in America, people. What are your biggest industries? The biggest legal one is insurance, selling fear. They're not making anything. And then you have what? Drug and human trafficking. Those aren't real. And then, military's big, and military is only partly authentic because it's still getting paid for all out of the government, but it has a lot of private contracts to get paid. But see, any government programs coming out of taxpayer dollars. So, the reality is you've got a situation where we've just gotten away from Rudolf Diesel. He goes, there's got to be a better way. I'm going to mention it because he wrote a book called Solidarismus. And he said, for humanity to really thrive together, the masses of humanity have to become partner owners in the means of production. And that's the antithesis of communism. See, in communism, it's not, nobody's an owner. Y'all just kind of work for the state. No, we're talking about true, authentic, all gain some capitalism is everybody owns everything. Or at least you have a choice. You can buy into certain things. See, we set up Concentric this time in the wake of COVID pandemic. We have people, and I won't name a name. You guys know there's like professional musicians in Scandinavia who are buying into Concentric. That's awesome. That's what it's all about. You don't have to be a power plant. See, a lot of people look at, well, I don't really know. You don't have to. But do you use electricity? Do you eat food? We give away for the whole world to be owners in it. Do you realize what Concentric is? See, I thought about this through this whole time. How can I give it away? How can I have a business that's so fabulously big that billions of people could own part of it and everybody still gets a big take on it? And do the math. Do the math yourself. Run the numbers. A home uses 2 kilowatt hours, roughly 2 kilowatts per hour. 2 kilowatts or 2,000 watts of load is typical. Got a few light bulbs, washer and dryer, refrigerator, whatever. Kind of that's a big home, maybe 5, small homes 1. It's why you can put solar panels, a few hundred, a few watts, like a 1 or 2 kilowatts on the roof, and you cover most of your load, except it's only daytime when the sun's going. So you got batteries, whatever, an inverter, and you connect the whole deal, but it's there. It's scalable. And run those numbers and see how much it costs. And that's your electric bill, per kilowatt hour. It's how many kilowatts and how much time it runs. And that's how you get charged. Well, what we've done is we've created a thing where when we generate electricity, we're making so many other products that the price of the power can be really low also. And we're talking with data centers. We've made some great proposals around the world, and we're fighting our way back to get in the game. It's miraculous we're alive. But we got about 15 minutes here, but I wanted to kind of cover that whole thing of what we are. And, like I'm going to just say it again and again because it's just kind of getting to be a burnout. And you guys who are just gaslighters, you win. We had it with a financier this week. He just same old gibberish. He goes, "Why are you changing lanes, bro? Why are you changing? Why are you flipping?" He told me, this professional finance guy. And if he ever gets a chance to listen to this, you know who you are, you know? And why are you flipping? I said, "Man, we haven't changed a word. We gave you a business plan last September. It was exactly what it still is. It's to build a couple of these plants, move some equipment from India up to England, build another new plant, build a couple of factories to build this modular equipment. It's all highly designed." And I say about these tycoons, and I'll kind of spend time, I guess I just kind of wrap up with them and we can go in a few minutes here. But, one of the things, if you look back at between say 1900 and 1930, you set the table for a lot of wealth generation in America. One of the big things that came in after, more like in the 50s, 60s, was the integrated circuit. Robert Noyce and the guys who, kind of developed the transistor. He was kind of right in the wake of that, and then came in with integrated circuits, founding Intel and all that. Amazing people, finding better ways to do things. And that's the part I want to kind of focus on in leaving kind of a discussion, because those connections are there, right? Like the old James Burke. If you haven't had a chance to watch any of his stuff, go back and watch some. James Burke was a pretty cool guy. I love his shows. I think he's still alive doing some new ones. He's got a little bit of greenwashing going on in there, but he's a fascinating guy because he would say how things are connected and interrelated. And I'll say that for me, like, this is just one that came. Look up Robert Noyce, Noyce, and see what role he played with the development of integrated circuits. And you know what Robert Noyce was? He was an optimist. He believed that if you worked hard at something, you could figure out some answers. And people loved him for that. And I remember reading an article about him when I was in high school. And I wanted to go into robotics, which was this combination of electrical and mechanical. And I got into mechanical engineering, and then I ended up getting into thermodynamics and energy production. And now we can use robotics and all these different things in control systems that can control parts of it. It's awesome. It's a great way to learn some skills and put them into application. But I remember reading about Robert Noyce and just the charisma of the man. It was a magazine article about him, and just like the aura of this guy coming off the page. He said, "You know what? I was just ambitiously lazy. I looked in these control rooms and saw these relays and transistors and vacuum tubes and diodes and everything. I was like, there's got to be a better way." And then he just thought, we got to develop integrated circuits. And the transistors came along with Shockley, right? PNP junctions and NPN and stuff. And then all of a sudden now we got phones, even how I'm talking to you guys. And you know what staggers me? You know what? It's like, I mean, sometimes there's not even enough tears left, but how can we be cynical? Look at what we're doing. We've doped silicon. Sand is the main ingredient still in semiconductors and microprocessors and integrated circuits. We've just doped it with various types of, not even critical rare earth metals, magnesium and some of the original, metals that go into semiconductors, and it can be a wide variety of things. There's all kinds of, you can use, you got the Linus Pauling, the electronegativity table. Mendeleev was incredible. Look at the periodic table. When he first put it together, he's like, there should be an element there. He had a whole bunch of them that didn't even exist yet, but he goes, there's going to be some there because that'll make the table make sense. And over the decades and centuries now, it's 1850s, right around the time when they were doing the Erie Canal. Yeah, no, not the Erie, the canal on the Red Sea coming up into the Suez Canal in Egypt. And then by 1913, they did the one in Panama. That was all in the era. They were still discovering chemistry in the periodic table. Incredible. And so Rudolf Diesel realizes that peanut oil is eventually the same consistency and everything as diesel. Very similar long chain hydrocarbon. He ran his tests on the 1900 World's Fair in Paris. Right. I had to look at 1893 was Tesla in Chicago with the AC lights. And then 1900 was Rudolf Diesel in Paris, and he runs it on peanut oil. And it's the same properties, and we're trying to develop some of those vegetable oils and things. And it's cool. You can take French fry oil and re-esterify it, and then add some diesel, and it just blends in with the vegetable oil, and it's all good. That's why it works, because it's the same fuel properties, and you get this blend. That's the most common way, and that's great, no problem. But my point with all this is, you go back about 100 years ago, you had a lot of industrial people doing things, and yeah, they left a wake of some pollution, and there's chemical refineries dumping waste in rivers and paper mills and everything. But you know what? You can clean that up. Industry's not bad. See, that's the thing. That's what gets into even all these anti-utopian novels. You want to be an environmentalist? Go read what guys like, you know, uh, Aldous Huxley and George Orwell and Ayn Rand have to say about all that, and you'll understand what greenwashing is. See, because progress in using resources to gain something from them to make life better, that's not bad. If you just dump the refuse of that process into a river or get people sick, put your garbage up in landfills. See, landfills, and people say, oh, we're capturing methane gas off the landfill. What a band-aid. And oh, we got liners for the landfill. Wow, that's a great use of material. What about the land itself? Was it really designed just to get a rubber membrane and then just pile it up with trash and cover it up and extract off the methane? Come on. That what there's some of the golf, a lot of times then they'll put a golf course there, right? And you play golf, and hey, it's great and stuff, but hey, don't drink the water. Like even down in Irvine, they're irrigating with some of the, like not potable discharge water off their wastewater plant. And then like Heron Lakes, isn't it, up in Portland, Oregon, is right by the old landfill, and you got the methane. It's not healthy. And you can get away with stuff, kind of whatever, but what a band-aid. And what we do is we turn all that stuff into a profit center. So we're cleaner and more profitable. And we've done this. That's the thing that's hard with Concentric, and maybe I staged it wrong. And you know what? I don't know. Maybe I'll never know the full answer to the story. As in my time when I was silenced, kind of the sabbatical that I had, I got newspaper articles and read things. I really thought the blockchain, I'm not going to dwell on that a lot, but I think that kind of hurt this company a lot. And I apologize to everybody who's been in it. A lot of you still see value. I do too. I love the blockchain in principle, but the cryptocurrency community, even some of you guys who drafted into this, just grow up. Holy crap. If any of you guys with those kind of attitudes that you have in the crypto space, if you ever are involved in Concentric Industries, you're fired immediately. That kind of behavior is just not acceptable. It's like being on a sports team and just being a rebel rouser and saying, oh, Joe's no good and everything. You know what? You're as strong as your weakest link. That's the message of champions. You deal with that every time. You got a sports team, you're going to have the fifth guy if you're on basketball. What if your fifth guy is not as good as the first? That's reality. Do you just say the fifth guy stinks and he's a bum? No, you build him up and encourage him. See, and I don't know what happened in the crypto space. It's just full of negative haters. And why? Why are you so cynical? I'm speaking to you right now over sand, manipulated sand, silicon, to make a transistor where we can even have videos like this. And you guys come in with cynicism that we can't generate electricity from plastics and paper, which are made out of carbon. It's unbelievable. I mean, if you're not a scientist, fine, but leave the ones who are alone. And if you're fraudulent, just stay out of the way. You're trying to hide in the shadows, so you call everybody else fraudulent who's not. I was naive. I thought the blockchain would be a space of transparency, right? Because you get one isolated transfer mechanism. But instead, what everybody did said, well, we just do the KYC and we sign up under an avatar. So yeah, my transaction's secure, but then nobody knows who I am. So I can kind of manipulate and do this, that, and the other. I mean, what a cop out. That's lame. That's not what we're doing. Never have, never will. And like I've even said, you guys who are holding on to the tokens, this isn't about the tokens. It's kind of funny. It's still a small number, like the Gideon 300. You guys are going to be fabulously blessed because we're going to have dividends come out, and it's going to be a billboard, and we're going to change things. And there's going to be news articles saying, how did you do it? I said, well, we had to go back to the real bricks and mortar world and raise regular fiat money to get some plants built. So we did it. And now we're putting it back in, and our stakeholders have a lot of money. And people say the tokens, this and that. And it's like, it doesn't even matter. It's about the business. See, that's the thing ultimately, is that like if you treat currency, fiat money as the business, if you treat cryptocurrency as the business point, because think about it. What good is money? What good is cryptocurrency? What good is any of that until you can transfer it out and put it into some media that's tradable, right? Because what is money? It's consensus, where you can take something, whether it's a coin. Here's a one lari coin. If I had some paper money, I don't have any right there right now, but I got a coin here. I can trade that in. It's a piece of metal worth maybe a penny, but I can get a lari worth, which is what, 40 cent US dollar, whatever it is, 40 cents, roughly 2.6 conversion. But here's the deal. I can date that and give it to somebody, because why? They know they can go give it to someone else and trade in exchange for something. So all these things about the blockchain and cryptocurrency are cool because it's faster, easier transfers, less fees, less overage, less, bureaucracy. But you defeat all you guys in the blockchain space who live off pump and dump. Hey, great, you can make your couple grand. Maybe that covers your bills or expenses and stuff. You're wrecking a really cool thing for a lot of people. And we're going to reverse that trend, because the value of it is now you can have a stock in a company, digital stock, and trade it and sell it and give it away and raise capital to go build the business. That's the part that got left out of the equation. That was the purpose of the stock market. But you call those people whales, right? And then, oh my gosh, he sold some tokens to raise money for running their business. Like, that's what it's for, guys. You missed it. And so, yeah, we're in that spot. And so, current state of affairs, people ask me, when's all that going to happen? We are busting our tail. I mean, this is in capital for this company right now, or doing an Ironman triathlon. And I would go do an Ironman triathlon right now in the dark, give me lights and stuff, with more confidence than I have figuring out how the money thing's working. And I say that with full optimism that I know we're going to figure it out, because we got a great business plan, making things people need. So here's my test to everybody. And some of you will just you'll grumble about it and whatever, because it looks like we still got some grifters in here. We're going to end up having, bona fide interviews. It'll be like a cool talk show. We'll do things on location, and talk is cheap and talk isn't cheap, but we're going to do that because that's our vision as a company. We're going to make these things happen, and we're going to make that available. And it's going to be fun. We're going to have some exciting things, because we are going to change the world. We're in the process of it now. It's taken us considerably longer to raise capital than I thought it would, based on all the things I came in with, and the reasons why we don't really have great answers for. We're what we're doing, and this is the award thing. This is the upside. There are probably a couple thousand organizations in the world that are venture capitalists or investors, investment groups, that have appetites for looking at things like ours, that are like a company with a proven pedigree, and they just are kind of in a restart-up mode, with technologies that are proven and patented and have commercial data, and then the upsides there. So they would take. We're looking for somebody smart enough to say, hey, let's take advantage of Concentric. Let's bring in X millions of dollars, get this thing rolling. We got a 90% financial partner. Some of you know the equations. It's ludicrous what people are missing out on. And our business plan's holistic to do everything. And people say, how are you going to build that up? And easy. Hiring contractors, building these. Is it simple? No, you got to know what you're doing, but it's not complicated. And there's people all around the world wanting to work. And we're building up alliances with contractors and rebuilding our own and the whole deal. Okay, so all that is what we've done. We come from that background. Those are good problems to have. We've turned human resources, jobs, into a good thing. See, so many jobs, they're looking at that as a negative too. We're looking at that as all a positive, because we can generate so many revenues, we can afford to pay people. So this is our deal, is that we're offering this 2% commission. We're offering, name your terms. If you have some real finance entities and bankers and groups out there, and we're talking to a lot, I think we're closing in on some even right now. I continue to say that if we just stop even talking to any new people, we're still going to close some. But yeah, we're looking at some cool, it might come out of certain parts of the world with people that have common sense on their shoulder and say, yeah, we'll be like the traditionally, we saw a couple up in Scandinavia have policies where they don't want to be more than 50% investor. That's exactly how power plants did. You get three groups that'll each be a third investor. Well, we've got one already at 90. So we're just looking for somebody to be 10%, and that 10% is guaranteed by major insurance companies. So it's crazy. We've leveraged it, hedged it, the whole deal. And what's it for? To build infrastructure so that human beings can have electricity, food, clean air, and clean water. which last I checked, everybody still needs that. So if you know any people, individuals, brokers, bankers, anybody in that industry who's serious about making a fortune worth of money, name your terms for us. You guys can see the pro formas. There's enough stuff printed out there. There's stuff on the website. There's business models all over the place. It's flying all around, and you can get them from our agents or whatever. These are super profitable systems, super clean. And if you know anybody interested to make a whole bunch of money doing things that all human beings need going forward, just send them our way and get registered, and you'll earn those commissions. We're on our way. And the cool part, I'll end with this, is that do it quickly though, because once we've built our business plan and the way it works on these modular plants, as soon as we get even in a $20 million funding, the one to Yorkshire is more like 3 million. I mean, we're talking small commercial development type stuff. But instead of just building a building and then get a 20-year mortgage on it and hopefully people rent stuff out, we've got stuff that has like 2-week payback once it's up and running a year later. Okay. Doing what? Making energy, food, air, water, and this new graphene product. It's awesome excitement all around it, great opportunities to solve world problems. And we're telling people, hey, once we get this solved, even with that first one to go through, we're not going to need an external financial partner anymore. Why? Because the profits from one unit, we designed it this way on purpose. So if you're involved in Concentric, don't be discouraged. We just need to find one entity somewhere in the world who wants to make a boatload of money doing really good things. And I realize that some people listen to this call, you're not that person because you're a jerk. You're a person who just badmouths everything and you're just cynical and you think everything's rotten, and you're just wrong, because the world's full of great things. Yeah, it's got treachery, but it's still a beautiful place. We believe that. But if you know some people who are interested, tell them about us. And they don't have to know about power plants. That's the thing. We get in a lot of these dialogues, being like, well, they want to understand power. No, we do that. And we guarantee we bring 90% funding and 10% guaranteed by insurance, regardless of what some other guy's knowledge of it is. It's not about it's not, yeah, I keep saying I'll end. This is a closing. Go watch Simon Sinek. Okay. The Power of Why right here on YouTube. Awesome speech. We live that out. When I first heard that, it's like, that's what we do. Because people buy why you do it. And that's why Concentric is going to last and who we are. Because our why is mammoth. Our reason why we do this is extraordinary. If any of you, if you want to do some due diligence, look at what we've overcome to be here. And you'll be like, holy cow, these guys have a reason to be here that outshines all the resistance. Because then what is it? You have a how you do it, and that's important. That's like our patents and technologies. Hey, great. I'm happy to talk about them anytime, but it's secondary. And the third part is what you do. Yeah, we build power plants. Who cares? We build them better than anybody. It's starting to get a little better. We build them to make quality of life better all around the world, to fight pollution and poverty, to fight hunger and dehydration, to build up an army to fight drug and human trafficking. That's why we are Concentric. Have a good day.